Hello everybody and welcome back to another exciting edition of Boyographic, the show in which I, Matt the Gameboy, take you through the highs and lows of the Game Boy library, one cart at a time. This week we'll be testing the age-old theory of if a video game by any other name smells as sweet with Operation C. During a video game themed Never Have I Ever, there are three landmark things that I'm always going to drink at. Never have I ever bred a golden chocobo in Final Fantasy VII to get Knights of the Round. Never have I ever launched a rocket in Tetris, and never have I ever beaten a Contra game. Well, that was until I did this video at least. Now I've technically beaten 3 of them, but we'll get back to that later. Yes, beating one of Konami's classic run-and-gun games is something that's long eluded me. Not out of lack of interest, you understand, but because I've always found them tough as nails. It's one series that, despite being a stalwart of the American NES experience, it's one I didn't really find out about until my teens, thanks to internet forums and emulation. Then I played the Alien Wars, died a lot, and thought, nah, I'm good thanks. It wasn't until I got a little older that I really learned to appreciate the game. Well, that's only half true. It wasn't Contra I learned to appreciate, but its European cousin, Probotector. You see folks, back in the 90s, Europe was very much against exposing the youth of the day to violent media. In some cases, this led to name changes, other times it led straight up changes in the games themselves. It's commonly believed that when it came to Contra, it was in particular the German Federal Review Board for Media Harmful to Minors, i.e. the BPJM, that took umbrage with the game because of its realistic depictions of war. This whopping list of games consists of 389 titles that strictly cannot be sold to minors and legally can't even be advertised. Naturally, if a game can't be advertised, it's virtually non-existent in one of Europe's biggest markets. The only way to get your hands on such a game is to ask a store clerk. But of course, if you don't know it exists, how can you request it? To avoid this marketing ban, it's believed that Konami took the extreme measure of removing the Schwarzenegger-inspired Bill and Lance, replacing them with, well, Pat Labor-inspired robots called RD-008 and RC-011. Gone are all traces of human life, replaced instead with machines. It'll come as no surprise to you, dear viewers, when I tell you 1991's Operation C was released simply as Probotector when it hit European shores the following year. Playing as Lance or RD-008, you must fight your way through 5 levels, running and gunning against the evil threat of the Black Viper. As you might expect, the first portable entry in Contra series is a sum of the parts that came before it. Those familiar with the NES original and Super C will recognise some things from those original titles, but honestly, Operation C for me really looks at those games with a somewhat critical eye and refines the best things about those games for a portable system. Naturally, all the things that make the series unique still remain. While levels 1, 3 and 5 are all side-scrolling, levels 2 and 4 are top-down. There's also weapon power-ups those familiar to the series will recognise, like the spread gun and Super C's fire gun. However, there is a new power-up found in the game called a homing gun that, you guessed it, fire homing shots that come in very handy in sticky situations. The traditional Contra machine gun, however, is completely absent from Operation C as, alas, Konami chose this Game Boy outing to be the first game in the series to give the player auto-fire right out of the gate. Of course, you'll find yourself cutting through the various different kinds of Black Viper militia as you progress, both human and non-human respectively, before reaching the mandatory end-of-stage bosses. These all deploy a great deal of impressive sprite work and a fair challenge to the player taking them on. True to what I know of the original games, the bosses all employ a set patterns that players must learn if they have any hopes of defeating them. Once you do that, you'll breeze through them pretty easily. Sounds straightforward enough, right? Well, you will only start off with 3 lives with which to do this, but at 20,000 points and every 30,000 thereafter, you'll find yourself earning extras. Yay! The game also offers you 2 continues with which to try again, though through cheeky use of the Konami code of the title screen, you can get back to any of the first 4 levels pretty easily. This set continue limit is a little annoying, especially considering the Japanese version offered this select screen from the off. But what are you going to do? It wouldn't have hurt Konami to allow players to see their score in level to see how close they were to an extra lives either, but that's just a minor grumble. The one thing that really does annoy me in these games, however, is the jumping. Oh man, platforming is not the main thing here admittedly, but whether you're storming the Black Viper base, playing a rehash of Super C's jungle level, or kicking ass in the Viper lab, you really need to be aware of your limited jumping ability. RD008 really needs to be on the edge of a platform before you leap, or you're going to find yourself falling to your death a hell of a lot here. It's something you can get used to, but for me at least, when I was running and gunning in some of the more frantic bits of the levels, I forgot just how short my jump was and died. Nobody to blame but myself, sure, but it was still annoying as hell. Not as much so as some of the super cheap enemy placement though. The Contra games are tough, yes, but honestly, some of the cannon placement in the lab level had me raging. I know it's about learning the levels, but come on! Maybe don't just kick my ass after I'm through a tough boss fight to teach me, oh yeah, there are cannons that fire at 45 degrees here. Also, letting a player die after the end boss is super bad form, Konami, for shame. All those grumbles aside though, I really did enjoy playing the game, and if I had to pick one or the other in terms of aesthetics, I'm surprisingly more into the Contra sprites than the Probotector ones, which honestly I wasn't expecting. I have loved the box art of the Probotector games since I was a kid. However, I just really feel that in the game, the robots all come off as a little rushed and feel very thin and elongated compared to the human sprites. They also don't gel as well with the environments as their human counterparts for me. I guess when you're drawing off the likes of aliens for your visual cues in the levels, it's better to stick as close to the source material as you can for the sprite work too. Like a lot of Konami's early 90s Gameboy games, Operation C would find itself being published under the Ultra banner, with Probotector coming under their Palcom publishing moniker in Europe. It wouldn't be until the release of 2000's Konami GB Collection Volume 1 that Konami themselves would put out the game in Europe, a recoloured version of Operation C called Probotector. Yep, if things weren't confusing enough, Konami decided to include the recolour of the original game as it appeared on the Japanese GB collection, except they hacked in a coloured version of the European title screen. Oh, bless them. Other than the odd juxtaposition of names, this coloured version retains the Japanese level selection option, the Konami code giving you 9 extra lives instead, and well, I have to be honest, the colour does very little for the game. Sure, one or two of the more muted stages look okay, but some of what I consider the best looking parts of the original game in black and white end up looking oddly messy in colour. It's a great card to have in the back pocket for sure, but if you're only going to pick up the collection for Operation C, maybe think again about doing that. What more is there to say? Operation C is a game I heartily recommend if you like the old school, learn by doing way of playing video games. The run and gun action here is on point, and despite some rather cheap enemies in the later game, everything here can be overcome with a little patience and practice. Some say this is an easy version of the NES titles, however I'd argue it's the perfect jumping on point for the series if you've been put off by talk of how difficult the games could be. It's got me eyeing up copies of the NES titles for sure, because if they have even an ounce of quality that the Game Boy versions have, I think I'm really going to enjoy playing them. It's proved to me, though, that maybe some of those video games never have I evers aren't so unobtainable as I thought. Now, I guess I'd better go try and launch that Tetris rocket ship. And that brings us to the end of another Boyographic, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, let me know down in the comments down below, and next week I'll be back with another Boy Curious episode. Until then, though, Game Boys and Girls, be sure, as always, to game on.